All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy for you to join us today for today's session. And yeah, so we'll get right into it. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and please enjoy today's webinar. Oops. Yeah.
We'll be playing bumper chairs.
Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today. Today's session is Building for What's Next, Redefining Neuro-Inclusion in the Workplace. I'm your host, Camila Adams-Friedson, and I'm Evolve Coaching's Communications Director. We have enabled live captions for today's webinar, and please feel free to use the chat for any questions or sensory needs that you may have as we go. So the purpose of today's webinar is to discuss how we can go beyond awareness when talking about autism and neurodiversity in the workforce. So our focus is to find actionable and equitable solutions for the workplace in order to foster real acceptance. At Evolve Coaching, we believe that an inclusive workplace isn't just about fitting in, it's about removing the structural barriers that prevent brilliant people from doing their best work. Wouldn't you agree?
I do.
Okay, so whether it's through physical mapping, refined communication, or inclusive leadership, we've seen firsthand how these shifts transform not just individual lives, but entire organizational cultures. To help us navigate this, I am thrilled to be joined by Joey Murphy, Evolve Coaching's Inclusion Program Director. Joey has spent years collaborating with employers to bridge the gap between policy and practice. She is an expert, and I promise, and is specifically in building internal capacity and fostering true cognitive diversity. Joey, welcome, and thank you for helping us navigate this topic today.
Thank you for having me here in the office.
Thanks for taking the time out of your workplace to come be in the workplace. It's 2026, and the cultural landscape has changed. A 2023 study revealed that over half of Gen Z, those born between 1997 and 2012, they identify as neurodiverse. So for years, there has been awareness that not all brains process information in the same way. But this awareness wasn't doing much to support those brains. Now, 1 out of 3 neurodivergent employees have a fear of being fired, and 1/3 of neurodivergent employees are dissatisfied with the support that their organization provides, while more than half have reported taking time off work due to their neurodivergence. So the not feeling supported in places, not feeling supported in their workspace, it places unnecessary stress on employees. So the idea isn't to fix the person, we want to fix the environment in ways to help empower those employees. So,
Right.
Joey, let's get started first off with a little bit about your background and how you came to be. You got a late
I
diagnosis.
did. I did. I was the weird kid in school. I was the weird kid in my family. Um, and the thing that was the difference maker was when I was 42, learning that I was autistic and that I also had ADHD. And so it made a lot of the struggles I had over the years, which, mainly were social. I was, academically capable, which is why the teachers would always like scream at me, "What is wrong with you?"
Right.
When I would do something unexpected or, handle something in a way they hadn't anticipated. They're like, "You're so smart. How can you be so dumb?"
Yeah.
Was what I got an awful lot of.
Wow. So, I mean, in a sense, you were knowing something was different, but not knowing.
It did. And, I was always told, "Oh, no, there's nothing different about you. You just need to try harder, or you need to do X, Y, or Z harder." Um, and part of that is because, for the dominant neurotype, like neurotypical people, the idea of being different is so horrifying
Right.
that they want to reassure you. No, you're just like us, even though
Right.
you're clearly not really that much like us.
Right.
We don't want you to feel excluded. Like we don't want to hurt your feelings and say, you know what, you are an entirely different critter, and we like having you here,
Mhm.
but we're also aware that there is something really different.
Yeah. So what was the first step you took in getting that, what brought you to getting the official diagnosis?
Well, I'd spent most of my life trying to figure out why people did the things they did. Like I call it narrative coherence, where I just didn't have the same sense of what is this story about that we're all in.
Mhm.
And so to me, I would often ask my mother or other adults in my life, like my older sisters, why do people do the things that they do? And they would look at me like, what?
Like meaning, like, for
Like,
example,
how do you choose what to study in college? How do you decide what kind of job you get?
okay.
How do you organize your life so that you get to do the things you like to do?
Valid questions.
Well, and for me, difficult questions because all the things I liked to do
Mhm.
weren't things that like young girls were supposed to do.
Mhm.
I was asking like, so what can I do instead? You know, other people organize things or know to follow their natural inclinations.
Mhm.
And and it's very common, very, very common for autistic girls and neurodivergent girls to not be traditionally gender conforming.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with sexual orientation or body dysmorphia.
Mhm.
They just look at like the rules and go, well, that's crap. I'm not doing it.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so like that, and that was my experience. I'm like, I am not, that is a lot of time doing your hair. And like I could be playing my guitar. I am not doing that.
Yeah.
Or like making, bringing sandwiches to my dad. I'm not doing that either. And I don't know why my mother does it. This was like everything, everything looked, it looked like you were in some sort of spy operation
Mm.
most of the time because
Okay.
I'm like you don't really mean that.
Mm.
Like,
Right.
why are you doing that?
Okay.
And so I couldn't understand how people structured their life. And so until I was like 42, I just did any old thing.
Mm.
Like the jobs I've had have been ridiculous.
Mhm.
I majored in philosophy as an undergraduate because no one ever was said to me, well, you should be preparing for a job.
Right.
But I'm like, well, how do I choose a job to prepare for? It was all just a mystery to me. You just did what you were told, or you did the first thing that popped up.
Yeah.
So, my working life, I was fortunate enough to be able to talk pretty well still back then. I've
Mhm.
gotten older, and towards like 2:30, 3 o'clock, I lose the ability to sentence.
And we all.
And so I did a lot of sales jobs. Would and the thing is, I'm autistic, so I'm a little bit gullible too,
Oh.
which means like if you convince me that the thing I'm selling will really solve a problem for somebody, I am all in. And my all in nature will communicate to the customer,
Mhm.
like it'll transfer to them very well. They're like,
Okay.
I am so sincere that
Interesting.
this form of life insurance is the best possible option for you and your family. And I'm like bleeding sincerity over you. People are like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. All right. So
so
what was that first step that took you to a doctor or a professional that
in my late 30s, I started really losing the ability to talk fluently
Mm.
after like 3 o'clock.
Right.
And it was a big deal for me because talking and writing and stuff was really how I
Yeah.
had made my way in the world. And it was very distressing. So I was like, obviously, I've had a stroke. Obviously, I am coming down with early dementia.
Right.
Check me out.
So yeah, so it was all very alarming.
Right. It was very alarming for me. And I had lost the ability to do as much stuff and to keep up. And I just, I was just frazzled. And the doctors kept saying, "Oh no, you're just getting older. That's just, menopause or, whatever."
Right.
And like that's true to an extent.
Mhm.
But what I now know years later is that I was starting to suffer from burnout, autistic burnout.
Okay, what's that?
So many of us have been, since we were very young, performing double duty.
Hmm.
Like we're running all our normal internal functions,
Mhm.
but then we have this added layer on top where we're performing to expectations.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going to make this look good and I will look like all the other kids,
Okay.
right? And that's like running a whole extra operating system. So it's very energy intensive. And I'm doing things like making sure that I'm smiling in a non-threatening way or a natural way. Because, like if you look at my childhood photos, most of my smiles are like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's like, right. I am smiling. Thank you. Yeah. Um, so like, is my head tilted just right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Am I speaking like a lady? And
Mhm.
my mother was very big on prosody in the
Mm.
voice, and she spent a lot of time teaching me how to use inflection because it literally drove my father out of his mind that I talked like this and answered all his questions in a monotone voice
Oh,
and didn't sound like a little girl.
oh, wow.
So it's like, do I sound like a girl?
Okay. So yeah, so after years and years of putting on a quote unquote performance,
Yeah,
you
I
started
was
to get
just
burnt out.
exhausted,
Yeah.
just exhausted.
So you go see this doctor and he's like, it's just menopause or whatever,
Yeah,
it's fine. And then
yeah.
you took it upon yourself to,
Well, I just it laid dormant for a little while.
mhm.
And I was just like, okay, well, maybe I need to do something different. And so I decided to go back to school and work on writing because I was like, well, that's not going to be very competitive and I won't have to, bust ass. Right. So I started my MFA at Pitt. And right when that happened, a woman I had known since very early childhood. We connected over Facebook, and we had grown up together since we were three,
Mhm.
literally. And I wouldn't say that we'd grown up as like close friends, but like we were just always with each other.
Mhm.
And so we had a
This is a
Zoom.
front row seat to
She
your
had a front row
childhood.
seat to my childhood. Um, she said, we had not a Facebook meeting. We had a Zoom with the cameras, whatever it was. We had set up a date. And so like we log on and the first thing out of her mouth is, "Joey Murphy, I think of you every day." And I'm like, that is really strange because we weren't like, we weren't like that. I mean, like, when I'm looking at our school pictures, I see you, but and she was like, "My son is autistic and he does something every day that reminds me of you." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh."
that okay.
Like it had been brought to my attention before.
Hmm.
Like somebody sent me a Temple Grandin book. It was like, this woman taught this, she thinks like you've spoken of thinking. And I'm like, oh shit.
Huh.
And I was really mad because Temple Grandin has no fashion sense, and I kind of pride myself on being cool. So I was like, absolutely not. And or then I was dating a neuropsychologist
Hmm.
who was like, one of the first things she said to me was like, "Do you like trains?" And I was like, "No." And the joke was that I have a lot of the traits associated with autism, but like girls don't get that.
Yeah.
It was still like it was like 16 years ago.
So at this
So,
point, this like autism was just thought as
and I'm
just
like,
something little boys.
yeah, and the only picture I had of autism was there was a 60-minute special in the late 70s or early 80s. And like there was this girl like chained to a radiator and banging her head on the wall. I was like, I'm definitely not doing that.
Okay, yeah, that's not the best pinpoint
No.
to think of.
So,
So okay, so she's talked to you, your
mhm,
childhood friend has pointed out to you
mhm.
what she believes.
And she sent me off Googling about women and autism,
Mhm.
and I found, a couple of uh, really credible voices
Mhm.
who were like, this obviously is missed by the diagnosticians. And, Pitt arranged for me to go see another neuropsychologist, not the one I was dating for obvious reasons. Um, and he was an older guy, and he was just like, no, there's no way you're autistic. You combed your hair and you drove here today and you hold down jobs and you're in graduate school. There's absolutely no way you're autistic. Like without even talking to me or,
Wow.
anything.
Yeah.
They did run a battery of other tests on me, like, and like turns out, yeah, ADHD, extreme anxiety, which I never would have, like, I just thought you were supposed to feel that bad when you screwed everything up.
No, but I mean that I guess that also attests to a lot of the masking and the
Yeah.
high performing that you've been doing.
Is this human suit in place? Hello. Hello, fellow kids.
Ah, yes. So, okay, so obviously this guy was not helpful.
I wouldn't say he was helpful. The anxiety diagnosis was helpful.
Okay.
And it just reinforced what a friend of mine who's a professional and has been for like 30 years in autism services was like, really, they don't have a test for girls. They don't have even a profile for girls. And again, this was like 15, 16
Right.
years ago. But like the people I had found on the web, other people found them, right? And so now you see a community developing
Right.
of women. And then you see a community developing of like other people that don't show up in the profile, like African Americans,
Right.
Latinx, Latino people, deaf people, blind people. There's all kinds of people that don't match the profile of a really smart little rigid boy who talks like a professor and knows a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Right? We all know a bunch of stuff, and we all do give lectures on our favorite topics, like a professor, although sometimes we're funny too. But we don't have that. It's not a cookie cutter thing, right? And our internal differences are very similar to each other. Like if you look at the whole of neurodiversity, and that includes gifted kids,
Right.
we have the same internal struggles. It has a lot to do with how much information you collect from the world around you, how you process it, and how you prioritize it.
Okay.
If you think of a radio, an old-fashioned radio with a dial, neurotypical folks have a range that's pretty tightly controlled, right? They pick up information in this range pretty clearly, and they prioritize it and sort it in very similar ways. Neurodiverse people don't have limits on the radio stations they pick up. And that sounds great. Like, ooh, all the radio stations in the world I can tune into. But the problem is, we don't get to sort or prioritize which station we listen to at any one given time. So we might be reading 4 to 10 stations at a time. And we have no way, especially as children, we have no way of knowing what's the priority information in that moment. Like if I'm in school in a classroom of a bunch of other kids, I notice that Jimmy Healy has a Superman lunchbox. And yeah, I'm also learning the ABCs up there, but right now, the Superman thing is much more important. Gotcha. Everything I've read suggests that this is synapse pruning driven. Like standard brains start pruning synapses at around age 3. Neurodiverse brains don't and may never prune them. Okay. Or conversely, we prune too many. Like there's different theories on it, but they definitely have narrowed it down to the synapses. Oh, wow. And so we get different connections, and we make different connections, and we don't really have a filter on all the information that comes in. And so that can be sensory, like that's like, oh, that light is killing me. Or the sound of the door closing 3 buildings away is driving me insane. I have autistic friends who can hear electricity moving through walls. I mean, it's just, it can be really outside of the range of what typical brains even think is possible.
Yeah.
And so, you will have gone through a childhood of nobody believing you. Like, oh, you hear electricity? Tell me another one. Or like for me in school, it was like I could hear the cycling of the fluorescent bulbs and it drove me bananas.
Yeah.
And they were like, the hell you can. Sister Margaret was like, stop with your fanciful imagination.
Everything that was going on.
But not everything. It's it's the spiky skills profile and the spiky sensory profile. Like, so yeah, I hear the lights cycling, the fluorescent bulbs cycling, but also I sat on a tack and didn't notice it for like until I got home and my mother was like, what's that? So like you don't really have the sensory gating, and the system routing is is seemingly random.
Wow. We've gotten the official diagnosis at
Yes.
this point, and then so now puzzle pieces are falling into place. You're starting to you have your okay, this is the aha moments here and there, and so you start writing.
Well, coincidentally, I was in a writing program.
Well, you start writing about more so your experience and what's going on.
I was very lucky that I was in a memoir writing program at the same time. And so I was able to really use that time to revisit my life and review my childhood and kind of reintegrate pieces, because it went from, I'm so bad at this, I'm a bad person. These are things that if I just paid attention to, I'd be able to do better. I'm lazy, I'm terrible, to, oh, you know what? I need someone to help me with this, because you could give me every dollar on the planet to pay attention and do this correctly, and I would still not be able to do it. So I found ways to, like, for instance, I use something called a daily money manager to handle my finances.
Love that.
Not the big picture, but like she makes sure like the checks go out to the right people, or because honestly, if I had set up my own online banking, I'd be paying like Baskin Robbins for my cable, or I would just never. It's all too much. They were my, Comcast money.
So you've got all these systems in place now for yourself.
Yeah. Instead of telling myself I have to gut it out and figure it out, if I were a better person, I'm like, oh my God, I will never make this work. I can just hire somebody. It was like huge. So my life runs much more smoothly now. And I don't feel bad all the time. Was the big takeaway for me as a late diagnosed person. I just generally feel better. And
you wanted to make sure everybody else was feeling this good as well.
Yeah, and not just feeling this good, but having functioning this well, but also having the world be aware of the differences in profile. Yeah, women are now getting diagnosed and girls are getting spotted much earlier. But the other thing that's happening is I've had 4 or 5 of my male friends, either that I grew up with or went to college with, who were like sort of dreamy, kind of artsy, not necessarily like musical theater boys, but like, they'd work stage crew at least. And they've been diagnosed since, and they're like, I always
the trees.
Yeah, they're just shiny. And the other thing is like we find each other, like the undiagnosed and undiagnosed people. Like we have a working social cue system with each other the same way like neurotypical people do. Like people always tell autistic and otherwise neurodiverse people, you've got to learn to read social cues. And like, I am reading social cues. They're just not yours.
Right, right.
It turns out if you fill a room with just us, neurodiverse people, we'll have a fantastic time.
Mhm.
It's only when we're in a neurodiverse, neurotypical social setting, which has been the dominant and presumed dominant social and not just social, but like cognitive and emotional and um, um, we typically run afoul of things in work situations
Mhm.
and other social situations because we don't perform social things the way that the neurotypical history of the world expects them.
Okay.
Like we're not very good. Like I said, when I learned what all the things like little girls were supposed to do, and
Right.
I was like, oh no.
Right.
Um, Now take that to like the courtesies and niceties of following the social hierarchies
Right.
in a place of employment.
Mhm.
Like, well, we all know that it's okay, it's not true on paper, but we all know that Dot over there is in charge of XYZ. So always check with her first.
Right.
Otherwise, her feathers will get ruffled.
Right.
I come in and I'm like, I don't see that in the org chart, so I'm doing it.
Right.
Or like, nobody told me I had to do
Yeah.
X, Y, or Z beforehand.
Mhm.
And that's really where we tend to run them into trouble, both socially and in employment situations.
Gotcha.
And it's a big deal because, neurodiverse people, autistic people in particular, are generally underemployed, if not unemployed. The somewhere between 70 and 80% of autistic people are unemployed or have never worked. And and honestly, those are just the ones we know have been diagnosed.
Right.
And we know now that there is a huge number of like, let's say Gen X and older people that didn't get diagnosed because it just wasn't a thing. And so
Right.
they've been like flunking through life, doing the best they can, cobbling together,
Right.
a living. Um, I can't speak to the experience of the men, you
Mhm.
know. Men tend to perform better in employment situations statistically.
Right.
But for the women, it means that most of us have lived through a lot of precarity, a lot of unemployment, poor access to healthcare, poor access to housing,
Right.
a lot of instability because we are not good with the current social currency, mostly. Um, we also have a lot of comorbidities that make full-time employment difficult. Like our health is also not good.
Mhm.
Either we have GI tract issues that are
Interesting.
comorbid with autism
Huh.
and ADHD. We have bone and connective tissue problems. There are all sorts of secondary physical things. We're very, very prone to autoimmune disorders, like systemic autoimmune disorders. So
Wow.
we're not as robust,
Okay.
right? And so like a 40-hour work week with little flexibility is very difficult for us.
Right.
We get exhausted easily.
Yeah.
We have a lot of doctor's appointments.
Yeah. Okay. So then that brings us to like moving beyond just awareness and trying to like make the workplace. What does that look like on the ground? Making the workplace just a more accessible and equitable environment.
And it's also particularly important right now because of the Gen Z statistic,
Right.
right? 53% of Gen Z identifies as neurodiverse. And Gen Z has also been raised to expect and rely on accommodations and flexibility, right?
Also to be able to talk about their feelings.
Talk about their feelings. There was a great article a couple of weeks ago. Is it really a big deal if Gen Z is 10 minutes late every day? I can't remember the exact title. And to those of us older than X, Y, or Z,
Right.
it's like, yeah, you punch in at 9 in the, you know. But then if you stop and think about it, I mean,
Right,
is it
yeah.
really, unless you're doing surgery,
Right, yeah.
like, is it really, who are you counting these minutes on behalf of?
Hmm.
Is it for humanity's sake or is it
Right.
for the bottom line?
Yeah.
And a lot of Gen Z and younger are less interested in the bottom line
Hmm.
because they haven't seen, neurodiverse or not, they have not seen that same sort of care returned to them or
Hmm.
returned to their parents by employers.
Okay.
They've
Yeah.
seen their parents half dead working
Hmm.
and getting nowhere.
Right.
So the idea of being that committed to something or absolutely abasing themselves to apologize because their bus was late
Yeah.
is just not going to happen.
Right.
And so I think the workplace is changing due to that reality.
Hmm.
We're going to need more flexibility. Um, we're going to need more understanding. We're going to need a more humane workplace where feelings are taken to an account and health needs. And we want to see a place that's kind of proactive about wellness. Like,
Yeah.
is it a big deal if, I have my joints will seize up and I will become the Tin Man if I don't get up and walk around like every half an hour
Hmm.
or so,
Right.
which looks a lot like fiddling. It
Gotcha.
looks like
Yeah.
I'm fiddling. And I feel bad about it too, because I know I was just up a little while ago. I should be sitting in my chair. And like, we don't even have that kind of workplace.
No.
And I'm like, I
And
know this is the time I've walked to the restroom. I don't know. I went to Catholic school
right.
and I'm Gen X. I'm like, I'm away from my desk and I do not have an absolute emergency.
Right.
This is awful. Um, but Gen Z is forcing the reckoning of how do we make a healthy workplace?
Hmm.
And that's regardless of your neuro status.
Yeah.
But it's definitely very beneficial for neurodiverse people.
Hmm.
Like, okay, we understand that different people have different best hours of work.
Hmm.
We understand that different people need different things from an office environment.
Hmm.
Some people really thrive in an open office environment. Some people would like to crawl off and die because they've been assigned to an open office environment.
Okay.
You know, it's really, and there's no telling. So like offering flexibility for either.
Hmm.
Over here, we have a bunch of little rooms you can reserve to
Hmm.
work in privately.
Right.
But if you'd like to be out in the pit, here you go.
Yeah. So okay, so let's start from the beginning in the sense of like how do employers find and how do we advertise jobs better or in a different way that's a little more neuro-inclusive as well as the job interviewing process?
How do you indicate that you offer that level of flexibility? How do you
Yeah.
how do you indicate in a job ad that you are an inclusive culture?
Hmm.
You basically say it.
Right.
We're an inclusive hiring organization with a great deal of flexibility in how you do your work.
Hmm.
We would love to hear from all neurotypes. We're especially interested in cultivating neurodiversity.
Hmm.
Um, we prioritize making things accessible.
Hmm.
And, accessibility isn't just physical. It's not just curb cutouts
Right.
and like ADA mandated door width.
Right.
Accessibility is a lot about culture and how you're treated.
Right.
Yeah, the ADA says you get this, this, and this, or the government says you get, the family and medical leave.
Right.
But how are you treated and what does it do to your career if you actually take advantage of those things?
Right. And there's also like different it also depends upon where you advertise where these jobs are and changing what the interview process looks like a little bit.
And changing the description.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, you'll still see, like, I haven't seen a postage meter in a place in like 20 years, right?
I had almost forgotten what you even meant by it, but
But, like a big entry level job used to be handling the mail for a company,
right.
right? And so that job ad always said must be able to lift 50 pounds or more
Mm-hmm.
because the boxes full of reams of paper for the copier are
Right.
50 pounds. A mail hod full of mail that you need to pass around the office is about 50
Mm-hmm.
pounds,
Right.
full mail hod.
Yeah.
So,
But not
and
so much anymore.
that's still like left in there, like must be able to lift 50 pounds. I'm like, nobody has lifted 50 pounds in an office for like 20 years. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like,
Right. Okay. So just a lot of ways in how you're describing your job.
like must be a self-starter.
Yeah.
Like, or we will also provide you with instructions.
Yeah.
How would that be?
Also good.
That's just good. It's really just having a mental flexibility of
Mm-hmm.
choosing your words carefully. You will be responsible for X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, an autistic person will say, oh, well, I can do X and Y, but I can't do Z, so I should not apply to this job.
Gotcha.
Um, do you craft your job ads so that they're very generalized,
Mm-hmm.
or are they very specific? Do you add in a lot of things to that job ad that are really pie in the sky requests
Mm-hmm.
and not what the job itself actually requires?
Gotcha.
Can you communicate in the job ad that this is a generalized description?
Right.
Don't hesitate to apply if you have relevant experience.
Gotcha.
And a lot of things change.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, is part of the job put in the job ad, a big part of the job is just simply learning how to do things as the job itself changes.
Right.
Can you indicate that to the potential employee so that they know I don't need these exact skills,
Yeah.
but I do have this track record of being able to pick up new skills and to roll with the punches?
Exactly. Yeah, that's very important. And something that I have found helpful in the interview process is getting questions, like some of the questions in advance.
That is a very
beforehand.
common accommodation
Mm-hmm.
for neurodiverse people and for people hard of hearing, people with a variety of disabilities. And it's really just a good practice for all candidates
Yeah.
because why not let people prepare for the
Exactly.
interview? You want them to give well thought out, considered answers to your questions. I remember I suggested this to one lady, and she's like, well, then they'll know what we're going to answer.
Oh,
That is true. That's true. But like, this isn't a pop quiz.
yeah.
We're trying. This isn't gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. We're not like giving away trade like secrets here.
Yeah.
All right. So there's, obviously the human brain, very complex organ. And there are not just two, but like two of the more common types of the way that we go about thinking. There's top down,
down,
bottom up.
Bottom up.
Explain the difference, please.
Well, most of the world we see around us in the Western culture, like in America, is organized on top-down principles of like, what is the fastest way we can move through this problem? What is the fastest conclusion we can come to? It's very linear, very results oriented, very I will interpret this thing via things I already know, like
Okay.
this horse and zebra thing.
Okay.
Cognitive schema, or like Eric Piaget in the early 20th century came up with this idea of like, here's how brains work. You learn one thing, and then the next thing you learn is filed in your brain according to how like or unlike it is to this previous schema you just picked up.
Okay.
Like, I know what a horse is. Now I have to learn zebra, which is like and unlike a horse. So I have to figure out where to put that. So I'm going to put it in like a horse, but also striped things. So the next time I run across a striped thing, like a cat,
It might
it will be like, it's a striped thing, but it is not like a horse. So this is a whole new thing.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it's there's like outgrowths and branches from one schema.
Okay.
Bottom-up thinking is, you know, I have no proof that that zebra isn't a horse.
Okay.
I'm going to have to study the genetics of
I need to pick it up. I'm gonna need to tear it apart.
I'm going to need to build this from scratch. Because not only do I need all the data, but I need to verify it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look at the genomics of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look at how they both wound up with four legs, but
Mm.
aren't the same thing.
Okay.
They have the same build, but they're
Yeah.
not the same. Something's wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
And so bottom-up thinking needs to experience and verify data all the way from the ground level up to the very top.
Gotcha.
Like it's the reverse. Like we will assume nothing.
Okay.
Schemas do not work for us. I mean, they work for us. We just don't trust them, and
Right.
we're going to double check everything.
Yeah. So just more data driven.
More data driven, more discovery of data driven. It's a lot like the split between hunters and gatherers
Okay.
that we're taught.
Mm-hmm.
Like the top-down thinkers, they have one or two items in mind, the gatherers, that they go out and look for and look to replenish every day.
Okay.
Hunters are out there looking for brand new things all the time to bring back to like expand and supplement the food supply.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always looking for new things.
Okay. And both very, very necessary
Yeah.
and in a community, no matter what that community is. So just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will get to them towards the end here. Oh, we are really closing
We're
in
pretty
here.
much towards the end.
Yeah, we are closing towards the end here. Okay, so just real quick, what are some physical things that our employers or leaders here in organizations can do to just something simple that they can do tomorrow
To make the
kind of
workplace.
a little more neuro-inclusive?
Well, a lot of that revolves around sensory stuff. Are the lights dimmable? Are the lights quiet? Is the furniture quiet? You know, a lot of office furniture makes big noise, and
Yeah.
that can be problematic. Is the furniture comfortable? Are the expectations for, you know, if it's a hot desk sort of situation, that's not very friendly to people with physical differences, like mobility issues, the
Okay.
whole hot desk thing.
What is
Because
hot desk?
it's like here in the co-working space where
Okay.
you just grab any desk
Oh, okay.
possible.
Okay.
But you know, we all have things we have to have now. Like I need a computer, and
Yes.
you know, and so you have to lug your stuff around. And so that's not very disability friendly in a lot of ways.
Right.
It's not disability friendly in terms of noise.
Right.
Are the doors easy to open? You know, here in our building, we have ADA compliant everything, except a lot of things don't really work for people with physical disabilities.
Right.
So the doors are too heavy. The elevator, we do have an elevator, but if the power goes out, you can't use it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's all very much a work in progress. It's just consistently trying to evolve.
and it's a mental evolution, right?
Yeah.
It's a new mental habit of consistently trying to think about what barriers can I remove before they even become barriers.
Yeah.
And it's a method of thinking called universal design, where we look at things and go, how many variables can I account for? Because the thing is, until 30 years ago, we didn't put any thought into what can we do to make this accessible for people with different abilities, disabled people.
Right.
Until like 1974, it wasn't even legal to be disabled in public. So no, we didn't calculate on having them when we built buildings and things.
Right.
And so people of older generations feel like that's extra, you know. What do you mean I need a ramp?
Tertius, what is this? Okay.
Horse feathers.
Check in with the chat and see if we have any questions here.
No questions.
No questions.
Well, we do have a comment.
Okay.
A comment to Joey's talking about getting up and moving around. Our attendee says, to your comment about needing to move and appear to be fiddling, humans were built to move. Maybe those who sit for long periods of time should join you fiddling.
Yes. So basically, you have a fiddle break in the workday.
In the longer workshops I do stop us about every 45 minutes. And depending on the mood and like the age of the group, we'll do like stretching exercises, or I'll have people like wiggle their arms and shoulders just to get the blood going. And I encourage people to do that in meetings.
Yeah.
You know.
Right, did you have something else?
One more, and I think we have covered this a little bit, but I think this just sort of welcomes a space to continue going deeper. Is any tips for supporting neurodivergent people in the workplace?
Yes, but you're going to like this because it's the same as supporting everybody in the workplace.
Love that.
Have you a working environment where everybody feels safe? Is everybody psychologically safe? Do people feel comfortable taking risks in terms of putting forth ideas, in terms of asking questions, in terms of pointing out problems? Is there psychological safety? Does your staff work as a team?
Yeah.
And as a team, are they happy to share credit? You know, everybody gets credit for the good idea. Are people comfortable asking you questions as boss? Is your organization pretty much free of hierarchy so that everybody's kind of on the same level when it comes to getting things done? We share credit, we share the work. That sort of non-hierarchical place where people are comfortable being themselves and, you know, engaging like humans with emotions and preferences does a lot for the creativity and the running of an organization. And it's also the sort of place that neurodiverse people thrive in. You know, if we're psychologically safe, like, you know, I would, you know, Camilla's here because she makes me laugh, and so I'd give a better presentation, frankly.
The question, this is a great question.
Okay.
What is the best way to find neuro-inclusive employers? My 26-year-old son is seeking employment, but we are assured that fit is essential at this point. Is there a clearinghouse for finding these inclusive employers?
Gosh, wouldn't that be nice? No, there's no clearinghouse. Almost everybody has, to some level, adopted neurodiversity inclusion tactics. They've taken a recent hit since the last election where a lot of places aren't prioritizing the language like that, but it's still happening. Anybody that has a good inclusion program, I mean, you have to just really check them out. And it depends, there's a vast difference between like small local businesses and big corporations. But generally, most everybody wants to be inclusive and tries to be inclusive, but need, you know, like they need specific feedback from an employee when they're not making the mark.
Well, is that something that you would think that as a neurodiverse person going and looking for a job,
Mhm.
do you think that's something, or and it all depends upon the person, but is that something you would
Mhm.
want to bring up in a job interview? Is like, these are some of the things that I would like to have.
I I would,
Mhm.
just because like I'm at a place in life where I'm not gonna,
Right, yeah.
but uh I'm gonna need a tub full of sand under my desk so I can run my feet through you know, it's like I'm gonna need a disco ball, a laser.
I mean, that's just kind of obvious. That's
I think it's very important if you're comfortable
right.
with being open about your neuro status in an interview, hopefully even prior to the interview, asking for accommodations as a neurodiverse person. Could we tailor the interview as like a working trial? Could I do some work for you
Gotcha.
rather than answer a bunch of questions?
Gotcha.
Can I have the questions in advance?
Yeah.
Can I sit side by side with the interviewer instead of face to face?
Interesting.
Because that is a lot more comfortable for most neurodiverse people.
Okay.
I would disclose, and I would say, in terms of what I need a flexible schedule because my sleep is weird and my health goes up and down. I need my own desk in a quiet spot. I need a lot of reminders
Okay.
that time is passing because
yeah.
I don't understand time
So
at the bodily level.
yeah, so basically it's just at your own level of comfortability of like, what you would need and what you find to be important or
Yeah.
deal breakers or, and so on and so forth. All right. So I think, yes, we are creeping very close to the end time here. We don't have any more questions or comments. And so with that, thank you, Joey, so much.
Thank you.
And the big
Let's
takeaway here
also thank
is
Amanda,
thank you, our
our
producer,
silent
Amanda.
producer.
So basically, don't wait for the perfect time to implement some change in your office environment. If you can do so, look at your environment tomorrow, today, later today, through the lens of one of the strategies that Joey shared today. Thank you all for your time, your curiosity, and your commitment to building a workplace where every brain can thrive. If you feel free to
And if
email,
not thrive, just stay for a while.
if you want to reach out to Joey, your email address, Joey, how can folks find you?
Johanna at evolve-coaching.org.
Okay. Thank you all once again. Okay.